and something completely different here for you to think about, because I'm an international tax partner here at Menzies, and love it or hate it, tax is going to be an element that you're going to have to face when you trade globally. So something to get to grips with and certainly to have on the agenda. So I'm just going to take you through some thinking here about where tax can bite and how you can manage that as you trade globally. So a bit of information about Menzies. You may or may not have come across us. We're a full service accountancy firm. We're based in the south of England. I work out of our London office, and we have technology as one of our key sectors. We're a partner of Ukie. And actually, the technology sector is a big sector for us. So, developers, publishers of games, online mobile. And it was, you may remember the PS5 launch that took place at Oxford Circus. That was actually our client, which did the signs there. I went up and took those photos, and it was a fantastic launch. And I know that Sony got a lot of publicity for that, and those signs actually stayed up significantly longer than they should have done because of the excitement around it. And that business itself, we've taken global. So global is a big part of the technology sector and the gaming sector, and there's a lot of companies in this particular sector which I've helped to go international. So from a tax side, you can start right at the beginning from establishing the business, but actually if you loop round here, the bit that I'm going to be looking at is the trading internationally and the international establishment. Actually, this is an interactive diagram. If you go to our website, you'll find this on there. If you click on trading internationally or international establishment, there's a lot of content there. There's actually, some of the information which I'm going to be providing through the course of this session, but there's a heap of other stuff which you may find useful, and I would recommend it if you're setting out on this journey and you want to think about business plan, what jurisdiction, what resources are available to you. There's a lot of good stuff there, but specifically here, I'm going to be looking at the tax side. And I think it's fair to say, and maybe a whole variety of people listening to this, but international comes in all shapes and guises. We've got clients that will just be trading from the UK. They've got no overseas presence. They've still got to unfortunately think about international if they're selling to overseas customers. And then you work through to some who've got some activity on the ground. Perhaps they've got sort of displaced workers through the global pandemic, working from locations, gone home, and therefore you need to get some advice on the impact of having them in that location. Through to businesses that are actually actively setting up overseas. They're putting in a presence in that local market for one reason or another. So in the gaming sector, I've taken businesses into the US, California in particular, put in reverse structures for funding so that people can raise funds in overseas markets. And then you get through to this kind of worldwide group structure where actually, there's a business which has operations in multiple countries and really has to think about the interaction of what's going on. So you could be anywhere on that spectrum, and international tax is probably going to bite, certainly if you're trading with overseas customers. So I'm just going to take you through now some of the differences here, some of the things to think about. This can only ever be about awareness. Hopefully just bringing tax to the table for some of you has given you somewhere to turn to think about the impact. For others who may be quite a long way down this path, actually there's some quite sort of sophisticated planning that is undertaken for worldwide group structures. So the first section really is where you're just trading from the UK. You've just got a UK business and you're selling out to overseas customers. What does that actually mean to you when you're generating revenue from overseas customers? I think the first thing to say here is, let's optimize the UK business. It always has to be thought about. There's lots of attractive reliefs and incentives available, making sure that those have actually been well thought through. So, in the game sector, there's specific video games tax relief, which you want to make sure you can claim if you're eligible for it. If you are or you aren't, you still may be eligible also for research and development tax reliefs. We have clients claiming both, so certainly something that's possible in the gaming sector. And then you may be looking to incentivize employees, to hold them in the business, to grant them some options, potential equity in the future of the business as it grows. So some tax efficient ways of doing that. If you need to raise new funding, maybe thinking about a couple of those schemes that I put on the slide there, attractive ways to get investors into the business, to give them some tax breaks. And of course, if you're an owner of the business, then you want to make sure you yourself are getting the best you can from your shareholder tax reliefs. So first things first for a UK business, make sure you optimize your own position. You're aware of what reliefs and incentives you're eligible for, and get those brought into your structure. If you're selling globally, though, you've got overseas customers, then you're going to need to think about withholding taxes. This is where your customer overseas, for one reason or another, may withhold some tax for the payment to you. You won't receive the full amount of what you were expecting. Now, this comes about in this sector where you're licensing intellectual property and you're getting royalty payments. You may be providing technical services to an overseas customer. You may just be selling some of your software into the market and need to deal with local taxes. And this is always about localization. What are the local issues in that country? So, you've got to identify if the tax could arise on the form of payment you're receiving, clarify what that tax is likely to be. All countries have different rules, different rates. The UK has different tax treaties, so you need to look into those. If you've got a contract with your customer as a business-to-business transaction, then make sure you get tax into that agreement. You want to make sure that who's paying the tax on the income you receive is clear, and potentially, if possible, to pass that obligation back to your customer so that you can receive the grossed up amount rather than just the net amount. And there may be some compliance obligations that you've got to fulfill to get into that position. Maybe local registrations, certifications, forms that need to be completed in a particular jurisdiction. We see it a lot with, say, the US or India, in order to benefit from lower withholding tax rates. So definitely just selling from the UK to overseas customers, watch out for that one, that your customer may withhold some tax from the payment to you. It can come as a shock. It certainly can be a cash flow implication. So that's a big one to be aware of. The other one, of course, is the VAT, the GST, the sales tax, whatever it may be in the jurisdiction where your customer is based. But this can arise as well. More and more countries have recently introduced VAT. You've seen it going into the Middle East in places like Dubai, and therefore you've got to be aware of what that local tax system is meaning in relation to you and the sales that you're making to customers there. And of course, you need to identify who your customers are. Are they? Is it a business-to-business transaction? Is it a business-to-consumer transaction? Exactly what territory are those customers in? Where are they paying you from? And then you need to understand those local rules. So if you're perhaps looking around Europe at the moment, you're selling to customers in the EU, you might need to join the MOS scheme in order to manage your VAT payments in that local territory, which will be driven by where your customer is. And this can be replicated in other countries. Sales taxes may arise, for instance, in the US states, or GST perhaps in Australia. So the VAT taxes, the indirect taxes that need to be paid on the actual sales that you're making in a country, those also need to be thought about and dealt with. So I think if you're selling out from the UK, the withholding taxes and the indirect taxes, they're the big ones to capture and get yourself familiar with how those are working for your particular business. Moving on actually from just selling out from the UK, it's worth, the next extension of that really is actually putting some roots down overseas, establishing yourself in a particular market. And you know, right at the beginning, where Paul from Barclays did a session on you know, some of the things that you would think about when you're going overseas. And I'll bring up a canvas which I think may be quite useful, which includes some of that content and gives you a way of actually working your way through all the issues that you'll need to think about here. So this is what we would typically call an international business model canvas, the sort of canvas that you'll try and complete when you're going internationally, you know, through from understanding your reasons for doing it. Why are you actually wanting to expand your business internationally? What research should you be doing in relation to the markets? Obviously, some great information passed in the previous session there. What risk is there around trading overseas, and what structure should you be putting in place? What resources are you going to need? What's it going to mean in terms of financials? The relationships that you'll need to form. Certainly, you know, you can't do international on your own. And then what are your key actions? So that's the sort of canvas that I would recommend anybody going internationally starts to think about. And just to drill into that and give you the way that you might kind of start to populate it, it comes out from these kind of questions, these sort of open questions that you may ask yourself about, you know, your reasons. What is your vision for the business? What's your main reasons for seeking to go international? I think if you can articulate that and really understand what you're trying to achieve, your purpose behind this, that goes a long way to then getting you through these next steps of understanding what research you need to do. Perhaps, you know, how easy is it to trade in a particular market? And I'll show you where you may get some information for that sort of question. And then on the risk and the structure, I'll give you some more thinking around the tax side of things specifically here. What are the tax issues you would particularly think about if you're actually setting up overseas? Resources, those will be key, of course. How you're actually going to deal with the expansion, who's going to be in the overseas business, etc. Finances, of course, it doesn't always come cheap to expand your business overseas, so you'll need to sort of think about you know, what resources or financial support the business is going to need. The key partners that will be required to assist you, and I'll give you a bit of thinking about how we can assist with that and how we help our clients go overseas, and then that piece around the actual implementation. So just a bit about the ease of doing business. One thing to, I guess, have in mind is the UK is quite an easy country to trade in. If you look at the World Bank rankings here, you'll see the UK sort of ranks as the 8th easiest to do business in. This table actually can goes down to about 190, I think. So the UK is a very easy country to trade in. Generally, obviously, you know, a lot of countries nowhere near as straightforward, and therefore, you know, you need to be aware of that and do your research in relation to trading in that market, and you know, what are some of the difficulties for getting into a market. For instance, the US ranks highly there, but there's a lot of businesses I'm working with. It's very difficult at the moment to get visas for staff if you're looking to deploy them into that market. That can take time. It can certainly add to the timeline. So every market will have its nuances. Interestingly, you know, I've been looking at this ease of doing business table annually, and China's generally been working its way up the table. So it's gradually becoming a little bit more open and easy to do business there. I know it's one which has actually come up on a few of the previous presentations. So just from the tax side here, aware of time, so I won't labour too much around these particular points. But if you are establishing yourself overseas, these are the kind of questions that you would ask yourself. What sort of business would you set up? How's it going to be owned? How's it going to be run? How's it going to be funded? How are the profits going to be made in that business? The employment taxes is a big one, as I said, because people may just find that they've got employees working in different parts of the globe, as it's very easy now to hire and have talent from other locations. And then dealing with, obviously, the cash. How do you get the cash back to where you want it in the most tax efficient form? So as I said at the beginning, love it or hate it, tax is going to play quite a big part for any business that goes internationally. And the way we deal with this is that we are part of an international network. So we have this reach. We can contact advisors in over 150 countries and pick up that local support that we're going to need in order to understand what doing business in that market actually means. So finally, just wrapping it up, that is how you can get to a very sort of comprehensive structure where you're talking about the entities, the local taxes, where you're making the money, how you're dealing with the cash. And there's a lot of tax issues that sit in between that to actually make that an efficient group structure for you. That's obviously a fair way down the chain from somebody who just trades from the UK, but it's where you may get to if you have a full-blown multinational structure. A few quick takeaways. I think international is for all shapes and sizes. You do need to have that strategy well thought through, understand what business model is going to work for you across different countries. Make sure tax is on the agenda. It might not be the most exciting point, but it's going to make a big difference to you. And don't go it alone. Reach out to some of the international partners and get the support that can make this a success for you. So that's all from me. I hope that's been useful, and I'll hand you back to Centre Control.